Have you ever wondered what would happen if the only person who knew how to save lives was the one everyone refused to believe? What if one brave decision could cost someone their career, but save dozens of innocent people? Before we begin, if you enjoy true-style emotional stories filled with suspense and unforgettable heroes, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who loves powerful real-life inspired stories. Now let's begin. The emergency department was louder than usual that evening. Phones were ringing, stretchers rolled across the shiny floor, doctors rushed from one room to another, and worried families filled every chair in the waiting area. Everything looked normal. Then, without warning, the entire hospital became strangely quiet. Not the peaceful silence that comes after busy hours. It was the kind of silence that made every experienced medical worker feel something was terribly wrong. Within only a few seconds, people started falling to the floor. An elderly woman collapsed while talking to her daughter. A young man dropped his coffee and grabbed his throat before losing consciousness. A father waiting beside his little girl suddenly fell from his chair. Nurses looked around in confusion. Doctors stopped walking. Nobody understood what was happening. Emily Carter noticed something that everyone else missed. Emily had worked as a nurse at Riverstone Medical Center for only 8 months. She wasn't famous inside the hospital. She wasn't one of the senior staff. Most doctors barely remembered her name. But before becoming a nurse, Emily had served as a combat medical specialist in the military. She had seen things most people could never imagine. And one memory suddenly returned. Years ago, during her deployment, she had treated soldiers exposed to a dangerous chemical agent. The symptoms had never left her memory. Now she was seeing those exact same signs again. Blue lips, tiny pupils, slow heartbeat, muscles becoming stiff, difficulty breathing. She whispered to herself, "This isn't food poisoning." No one heard her. Everyone around her was already assuming the same thing. Food contamination. Someone shouted, "Call the stomach specialist." Another doctor yelled, "Prepare anti-nausea medication." Emily looked toward a little boy lying on a stretcher. His name was Ethan, only 7 years old. He had come to the hospital earlier because he had twisted his ankle while playing soccer. He wasn't supposed to be critically ill, but now his breathing was becoming weaker every second. Emily quickly checked his pulse. Too slow. She looked into his eyes. His pupils were tiny. She gently touched his forehead. Cold sweat. Every sign matched the nightmare she remembered from overseas. She stood up immediately. "Dr. Harris." The head physician looked toward her for only a second. "What is it?" "This isn't food poisoning." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I think these patients have been exposed to an organophosphate chemical." Several people nearby stopped moving. The young resident beside Dr. Harris laughed quietly. "A chemical attack?" Emily stayed calm. "I'm not guessing. Their symptoms match perfectly." Dr. Harris folded his arms. "You're a nurse." "Yes. So let the physicians handle the diagnosis." She looked directly into his eyes. "Please examine the child." "We already know what's happening." "No. We're done discussing this." He turned away. Emily looked back at Ethan. His lips had become darker. His breathing slowed again. She knew exactly what would happen next. Without the correct medication, he wouldn't survive. She looked around the emergency room. Everyone was following the wrong treatment. Time was disappearing. She had only seconds to decide. Should she obey hospital rules or save a child's life? Her hands trembled for just a moment. Then she made her decision. She rushed toward the emergency medication cart. Inside was the drug she needed. Atropine. She checked the label carefully, prepared the syringe, returned to Ethan, and injected the medicine. Everything happened in less than 20 seconds. "What are you doing?" the resident shouted across the room. Several nurses froze. Dr. Harris spun around. His face turned bright red. "Did you just administer medication without authorization?" Emily kept watching Ethan's heartbeat monitor. She didn't answer immediately. The monitor still showed a dangerously slow pulse. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then His heartbeat began climbing. His breathing became deeper. Color slowly returned to his face. The little boy took one long breath. Then another. Emily smiled quietly. It worked. The room fell silent. Everyone had seen it. Nobody could deny what had just happened. But instead of thanking her, Dr. Harris became furious. You violated hospital policy. He needed treatment. You don't decide that. Someone had to. His voice echoed across the emergency room. Security. 2 hospital security officers hurried inside. Both of them knew Emily well. She often brought them coffee during overnight shifts. One of them looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Dr. Harris interrupted. Remove her from this hospital immediately. Emily looked around the room. Dozens of patients were still collapsing. Doctors were still treating the wrong illness. They need atropine, she said. Nobody answered. They're running out of time. Still, no one listened. One security officer slowly pulled plastic restraints from his belt. Emily didn't resist. She simply held out her hands. The restraints tightened around her wrists. Several nurses watched with tears in their eyes. No one dared speak. Emily walked through the emergency department surrounded by security officers. Patients stared at her. Some were lying on the floor. Others struggled to breathe. She wanted to help, but she couldn't. The automatic doors opened. Cold evening air hit her face. She was escorted outside the hospital and told to stay away from the building. The security officers removed themselves from the entrance. Emily sat quietly on the curb near the ambulance entrance. Her wrists still hurt from the restraints. She wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about everyone still inside. 40 patients. Maybe more. Receiving the wrong treatment. She looked toward the sky. Something unusual caught her attention. A faint yellow cloud floated above the northern edge of the city. Very thin. Almost invisible. But she recognized it immediately. That wasn't normal pollution. It looked exactly like the chemical clouds she had seen during military service. Her heart sank. This really is chemical exposure. She whispered. Then she heard something in the distance. Heavy engines. 1, 2, 3. More. She stood. A convoy of military vehicles entered the hospital driveway. Behind them came emergency response trucks and hazardous material teams. Every vehicle stopped at the emergency entrance. Soldiers quickly stepped outside. Medical specialists followed. Leading them was a gray-haired military commander. He scanned the area. Then his eyes stopped on Emily. He noticed the marks around her wrists. He walked directly toward her. Are you Emily Carter? She stood automatically. Years of military discipline returned without thinking. Yes, sir. The commander looked at the plastic marks left by the restraints, then pulled out a small knife and cut away the remaining zip tie. He looked her straight in the eyes. We've confirmed a chemical leak from an industrial plant north of the city. Emily nodded. I knew. What are they treating inside? Food poisoning. The commander's expression changed immediately. How many patients? More than 40. Medication. They need atropine immediately. The commander turned toward his officers. Move. Within seconds, the military response team rushed into the hospital. Before following them inside, the commander looked back at Emily. From this moment on, we need you. And for the first time that night, someone finally listened to the nurse everyone else had ignored. Emily followed the commander through the hospital doors without wasting another second. Everything inside looked worse than when she had been forced outside. More patients had collapsed. Several nurses were trying desperately to help, but the treatments they were giving weren't working. Doctors were becoming confused. Nothing made sense anymore. One patient stopped breathing. Another suddenly lost consciousness. Family members cried for help. The entire emergency department was slipping into complete panic. The military commander raised his voice. Everyone stay calm. Hazardous Materials Response Team has taken command. Every conversation stopped. Doctors stared at the soldiers entering with medical equipment. Specialized masks. Protective suits. Emergency antidote kits. Portable air monitor. The commander walked directly toward Dr. Harris. "We have confirmed chemical contamination from North Valley Industrial Plant. Your patients are suffering from organophosphate poisoning." Dr. Harris looked shocked. "That's impossible. It has already been confirmed. We've been treating food poisoning." "That's exactly the problem." The commander didn't sound angry. He sounded disappointed. Every minute spent using the wrong treatment has placed these patients in greater danger. Dr. Harris looked toward Emily, then back toward the commander. "This nurse administered medication without authorization." The commander answered without even looking at him. "And because of that," he pointed toward Ethan, "the child is still alive." Dr. Harris had no response. The commander turned toward Emily. "I need your assessment." Without hesitation, she began moving from bed to bed. "This elderly woman needs atropine immediately. This man requires breathing support. Move that patient into the isolation area. Check oxygen levels again." She spoke calmly, confidently. Years of military experience returned naturally. The soldiers trusted every instruction. The hospital nurses quickly joined them. Within minutes, the emergency room finally became organized. Emily reached another patient, a teenage girl. Her heartbeat was slowing rapidly. Emily quickly examined her eyes. Same symptoms. She prepared another dose of atropine. Seconds later, the girl's breathing improved. Across the room, her frightened mother burst into tears. "Thank you." Emily simply nodded. There wasn't time to celebrate. She continued moving from one patient to another. The commander watched quietly. Finally he asked, "Where did you learn this?" "I served as a military combat medic." "When?" "6 years." His expression changed. "So that's why you recognized it." She nodded. "I've seen this before." Meanwhile, Dr. Harris stood silently near the nurse's station. His confidence had disappeared. Everything he believed about the situation had been wrong. One of the younger doctors slowly approached him. "Sir." "What?" "She's been right from the beginning." Dr. Harris didn't answer. Across the room, the little boy Ethan smiled weakly at Emily. "Are you leaving again?" Emily knelt beside him. "Not this time. You saved me." She smiled gently. "You were very brave." The boy reached for her hand. His small fingers wrapped around hers. "My mom says heroes wear capes." Emily laughed softly. "I've never owned one." The boy smiled. "I think nurses don't need capes." For just a second, the stress disappeared. Then another alarm sounded. A patient upstairs had collapsed. Emily immediately looked toward the commander. The chemical reached the upper floors. He nodded. "I was afraid of that." He turned toward several soldiers. "Split into teams. Search every department. No patient gets overlooked." Within minutes, medical teams spread throughout the hospital. Emily followed one group upstairs. The intensive care unit was already filling with patients showing similar symptoms. One elderly man struggled to breathe. A pregnant woman became dizzy. Another nurse looked completely overwhelmed. Emily immediately stepped in. "Help me lift him. Prepare oxygen. We need another 4. Everyone listened. Nobody questioned her anymore. The same doctors who had ignored her less than an hour earlier were now following every instruction she gave. One young nurse whispered, "I'm sorry." Emily looked at her. "For what?" "I should have believed you." Emily smiled kindly. "This isn't about me. It's about them." Hours passed. Patient after patient slowly improved. Color returned to their faces. Heartbeats became stronger. Breathing stabilized. The atmosphere inside the hospital completely changed. Hope replaced panic. Around midnight, the commander walked toward Emily. "Current count." She looked at the patient list. 47 stabilized. "Any fatalities?" "None." He smiled for the first time that night. "That's because someone refused to stay quiet." Emily didn't answer. She simply looked around the room. Every patient represented another chance at life. Every family represented another future that hadn't been destroyed, while everyone focused on the patients. Dr. Harris quietly stepped into the hallway. He pulled out his phone. He checked both directions before making a call. His voice became almost a whisper. They're asking questions. A pause. No. They know about the chemical. Another pause. They're going to inspect the pharmacy. Emily happened to walk toward the supply room when she heard part of the conversation. She couldn't hear every word. But one sentence froze her. Move everything before they check the inventory. Dr. Harris quickly noticed her standing nearby. Their eyes met. For one long second. Neither of them spoke. Then he ended the call immediately. What are you doing here? Emily answered calmly. I came for medication. He forced a smile. You must have misunderstood. Maybe. But deep inside, she knew she hadn't. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just a medical mistake anymore. It felt much bigger. Much darker. Back inside the emergency department, government investigators had arrived. One woman wearing a federal identification badge approached the commander. They quietly discussed something while looking toward the hospital pharmacy. Emily couldn't hear the conversation, but she noticed the investigator writing several notes. Then the woman walked directly toward Emily. My name is Laura Mitchell. Emily nodded. I'm with the Federal Safety Investigation Office. Emily waited. Laura spoke quietly. I need a full statement from you before you leave. About tonight? About everything. Emily frowned. What do you mean? I believe you overheard something important. Emily remembered Dr. Harris's phone call. I only heard part of it. Sometimes. Laura replied. One sentence is enough. Emily looked back toward the pharmacy. The lights inside were still on. Someone was moving around behind the shelves. She couldn't clearly see who it was, but something inside her told her. Tonight's emergency wasn't over yet. There was another story hiding behind these hospital walls. And before long, the truth would begin to reveal itself. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more unforgettable stories, and share it with a friend who enjoys inspiring heroes and shocking mysteries. Your support helps this channel bring you even more incredible stories every week. Emily had no idea. The next 24 hours would completely change her life forever. The sun had barely risen when Emily finally drove home. She had worked through the entire night. She had been fired, handcuffed, humiliated, then brought back to save dozens of lives. Now the streets were quiet, but her mind wasn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan struggling to breathe. She remembered the terrified faces of the families. She remembered Dr. Harris's phone call. Move everything before they check the inventory. Those words refused to leave her thoughts. After only 4 hours of sleep, her phone started ringing. The first call came from the hospital's Human Resources Department. A calm voice read from an official document. Emily Carter, your employment has been terminated effective immediately, due to unauthorized administration of medication and violation of hospital policy. Emily listened without interrupting. When the call ended, she quietly placed the phone on the table. 5 minutes later, another call arrived. This time it was from one of the nurses she trusted. Her name was Rachel. You need to see the news. Emily turned on the television. A local news reporter stood outside Riverstone Medical Center. The headline shocked her. Hospital administration praised for saving patients during chemical emergency. Dr. Harris appeared on the screen. He stood confidently in front of several cameras. Our medical team responded immediately, he said. Our emergency procedures saved every patient. Emily stared at the television. Not once. Not even once. Did he mention the nurse who recognized the poisoning? Not once did he admit she had saved the first child. Instead, he accepted every compliment. Rachel spoke again through the phone. I can't believe this. Emily answered quietly. It doesn't change what happened. But everyone thinks he saved them. The patients know the truth. Rachel remained silent. Then she asked softly, what are you going to do now? Emily looked at the television one last time. I don't know. That afternoon, someone knocked on her apartment door. Emily wasn't expecting visitors. She carefully looked through the peephole. 2 people stood outside. 1 man. 1 woman. Both wore plain business clothes. The man held up a government identification badge. Miss Carter. Emily opened the door. Yes. I'm Special Agent Daniel Brooks. This is Agent Olivia Reed. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Emily invited them inside. They sat around her small kitchen table. Daniel placed a thick folder on the table. We've been investigating Riverstone Medical Center for over a year. Emily looked surprised. A year. He nodded. We believe emergency medications have been disappearing from the hospital. Emily slowly remembered something. Several times during the past months, she had requested emergency drugs. Each request had been approved, but the medicine never arrived. Hospital management always blamed supply shortages. At the time, she believed them. Daniel continued. We think someone has been stealing medical supplies. Emily looked up. Dr. Harris? We're still gathering evidence. Olivia opened another folder. Last night changed everything. Emily frowned. What do you mean? The chemical emergency forced everyone to use emergency medication. She understood immediately. If the medicine wasn't there, the shortage would finally be discovered. Emily slowly nodded. So that's why he made that phone call. Daniel leaned forward. What exactly did you hear? Emily repeated every word she remembered. I heard him say, they're going to inspect the inventory and move everything before they check. Daniel immediately wrote the sentence down. Olivia exchanged a quick look with him. It was obvious. Those words were important. Very important. Daniel finally spoke. Miss Carter. We believe you overheard an attempt to destroy evidence. Emily remained silent. The room suddenly felt much smaller. This wasn't just about one terrible night anymore. This was becoming a federal investigation. Daniel handed her a business card. If anyone from the hospital contacts you, call us immediately. Emily nodded. I will. The agents had barely left when her phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered. Emily? A smooth male voice spoke. My name is Richard Lawson. I represent Riverstone Medical Center. Emily already knew where this conversation was going. I'm listening. The hospital wishes to avoid unnecessary legal action. She said nothing. We're prepared to offer financial compensation. How much? There was a short pause. $82,000. Emily remained silent. Richard continued. In exchange, we simply ask that you avoid discussing last night's events publicly. She almost laughed. So, you want me to stay quiet? We prefer the term professional confidentiality. Emily looked toward the window. She thought about Ethan. She thought about every frightened family. She thought about the patients who almost died. Then she answered. No. Another pause. You may wish to think carefully. I already have. She ended the call. Less than 10 seconds later, she dialed Agent Brooks. They just offered me money. How much? $82,000. Daniel didn't sound surprised. Thank you. We were expecting that. Emily frowned. You were? Yes. The offer itself is evidence. That evening, Emily sat alone writing everything she remembered. Every conversation. Every unusual event. Every missing medication. Every strange instruction. Every unanswered question. She filled page after page. Hours passed. Outside, rain quietly tapped against her apartment windows. Then, at exactly 8:47 p.m., her computer made a notification sound. New email. No sender name. No message. Only one attachment. Hospital_inventory. PDF. Emily hesitated, then opened it. The file contained dozens of inventory reports. Every page showed 2 different numbers. One official. One handwritten. The official records claimed emergency medicine shelves were full. The handwritten notes showed the real numbers. Many shelves were almost empty. She continued scrolling. The shortages had existed for months. Near the final page, she noticed 2 handwritten words. He knows. Nothing else. Just those 2 words. Emily stared at the screen. Who had sent this? Who was secretly collecting evidence? Who was risking everything to expose the truth? Before she could think further, her phone vibrated. A text message from Nurse Rachel. Please be careful. Emily immediately replied. Why? Rachel answered almost instantly. Dr. Harris isn't here anymore. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Another message appeared. Security took his ID badge this evening. Emily sat upright. What happened? I don't know. But everyone looks scared. And Rachel paused before sending the final message. I think someone is watching the staff. Emily looked toward her apartment window. The parking lot outside was dark. Almost empty. Almost. A black SUV sat beneath one of the streetlights. Its engine was running. Its headlights were off. Someone was inside. Watching. Emily slowly stepped away from the window without turning on any additional lights. She immediately called Agent Brooks. I think someone is outside my apartment. Stay inside. We're already on our way. Emily locked every door, closed every curtain, turned off the living room light. Then she waited. Every second felt longer than the last. The SUV remained parked outside. 5 minutes later, 2 unmarked government vehicles quietly entered the parking lot. The black SUV suddenly started moving. It drove away before the agents could reach it. Daniel Brooks stepped inside Emily's apartment a few minutes later. Were you able to identify the driver? Emily shook her head. No. Daniel looked toward the window. They're getting nervous. Emily crossed her arms. Because they know someone is exposing them. Daniel nodded. And because they still don't know who. He looked directly at her. But from this moment forward, they believe it's you. Emily felt a chill run through her body. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She had become a target. If you're enjoying this incredible story so far, take just a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves suspense-filled stories where courage changes everything. Your support means more than you know. Emily had survived the chemical disaster. But the most dangerous part of the story was only beginning. The next morning, Emily arrived at the federal office before sunrise. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she kept thinking about the anonymous email, the black SUV outside her apartment, and the 2 handwritten words. He knows. Agent Daniel Brooks met her at the entrance. We're moving quickly today. Emily nodded. Did you find out who sent the documents? Daniel shook his head. Not yet. But we're getting closer. Inside the conference room, several investigators were already waiting. Maps covered one wall. Financial records covered another. Dozens of photographs connected with red lines stretched across a large investigation board. Emily immediately realized something. This wasn't about one hospital anymore. Daniel pointed toward the board. There are 3 medical centers connected to this case. Emily looked surprised. 3. Yes. The same supplier. The same financial company. And many of the same missing medications. Emily slowly understood. This has been happening for years. Daniel answered quietly. Exactly. Just then, another agent hurried into the room. We've got something. Everyone turned. The hospital compliance officer wants to talk. Who is he? Michael Foster. Emily had seen him before. He was the quiet man who spent most of his time reviewing paperwork. Hardly anyone noticed him. Daniel immediately arranged a meeting. An hour later, Emily entered a small roadside diner with 2 undercover agents watching from nearby vehicles. She sat down across from Michael. He looked exhausted. Dark circles covered his eyes. His hands shook as he held a coffee cup. I've been waiting for this day. Emily stayed silent. Michael slowly removed a small external hard drive from his jacket. He placed it on the table. This contains everything. Emily looked at the drive. What is it? 3 years of records. She stared at him. 3 years. Michael nodded. I started making secret copies after I realized the inventory reports were fake. Emily asked quietly, "Why didn't you go to the police?" Michael smiled sadly. "I tried. No one believed me. So I kept collecting evidence." He pushed the drive closer. "There are security videos, financial transfers, inventory reports, and patient files." Emily frowned. "Patient files?" Michael lowered his voice. "Some patients didn't die because they were too sick." Emily felt cold. "What do you mean?" "They were denied treatment." Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. Michael continued. "When expensive medication was needed, it sometimes disappeared. When insurance companies refused payment, treatment slowed down. Some patients waited too long. Some never recovered." Emily looked down at the hard drive. "Does Dr. Harris know?" Michael answered immediately. "He approved every decision." Emily closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered every family she had comforted, every patient she couldn't save, every missing medication. Suddenly, everything made sense. The shortages, the fake reports, the phone calls, the attempted cover-up. Michael looked around nervously. "I can't keep this anymore. They know someone copied the files." Emily reached for the drive. "I'll make sure this reaches the investigators." Michael smiled for the first time. "Then maybe the families will finally know the truth." As they stood to leave, Emily's phone vibrated. It was Agent Brooks. "Don't leave the diner." Emily stopped walking. "What happened?" "We've just received arrest warrants." Emily looked toward Michael. "For who?" Daniel answered. "Dr. Harris, the pharmacy director, several board members, and 2 outside contractors." Emily felt relief. Finally, justice was coming. Within the next 2 hours, federal agents surrounded Riverstone Medical Center. News helicopters circled above the building. Television crews gathered outside. Employees watched through hospital windows. Dr. Harris was escorted from the building in handcuffs. For the first time, he looked frightened. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you steal emergency medication? Did you cover up patient deaths?" He never answered. The cameras captured everything. Meanwhile, federal investigators searched offices, storage rooms, computers, and financial records. Boxes of documents were carried outside. Hard drives, cash records, prescription logs. Every hour, more evidence appeared. By afternoon, the news channels completely changed their headlines. Yesterday, Dr. Harris had been called a hero. Today, he was the center of one of the largest healthcare corruption investigations in the state. One reporter looked directly into the camera. "We are now learning that a nurse's quick actions during last night's chemical emergency may have prevented dozens of deaths." Emily watched the broadcast quietly from the federal office. She didn't smile. She wasn't thinking about recognition. She was thinking about the patients, especially Ethan. Just then, someone knocked gently on the conference room door. It was Ethan's parents. Emily stood. Neither parent said anything. Instead, Ethan ran forward and hugged her. His mother wiped away tears. "We almost lost our son." His father shook Emily's hand. "We can never repay you." Emily smiled warmly. "You don't have to." Ethan looked up at her. "My teacher says heroes never give up." Emily laughed softly. "Your teacher sounds very smart." The little boy reached into his backpack. "I made something." He handed Emily a folded piece of paper. She opened it carefully. It was a drawing. A nurse wearing blue scrubs stood in front of a hospital. Above her was one sentence written in a child's handwriting. "The lady who saved everyone." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She carefully folded the drawing. "I'll keep this forever." Several weeks later, the investigation officially ended. More than 20 people faced criminal charges. Millions of dollars in stolen medical supplies were recovered. Families received long overdue answers. Several hospital policies were completely rewritten. New emergency procedures were introduced across the region. As for Emily, She never returned to Riverstone Medical Center. Instead, she accepted a leadership position at another hospital where experience, honesty, and courage were valued. On her first day, the hospital director welcomed every employee. Then he smiled at Emily. "We're proud you're here." She smiled back, not because she had won, not because she had become famous, but because she had learned something important. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. Sometimes it costs your job. Sometimes it costs your reputation. Sometimes it makes powerful people your enemies. But if your courage saves even one innocent life, then every sacrifice becomes worthwhile. Months later, Emily framed Ethan's drawing and hung it above her desk. Whenever a difficult day came, she looked at those simple words, "The lady who saved everyone." And she remembered exactly why she had chosen to become a nurse. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story inspired you, please like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who believes courage and kindness can change the world. Don't forget to leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.